I was asked recently about my opinion on the concept of damaged goods, and I thought, why not share my opinion on that publicly? I think this is a really important topic because it is in alignment with my values and beliefs personally as a progressive and contemporary style sex coach. So you're welcome to disagree. I want to value everybody's opinion on this, and what they look for in a partner is totally valid. But I want to challenge you to question why you value certain things about potential or existing partners and why you're looking for that in a relationship. This in particular is a really big one to be self-examining about. Why? Because everybody has a wide variety of sexual history in their past, and there are a lot of toxic assumptions that are common in our culture and in other cultures that prohibit people being seen for just who they are in the moment. There's sort of like this projection of meaning and a perhaps devaluation on their personhood, their character, because of what they've done in their past. Personally, I think that's unfair, and here's why. So, having a lot of previous, or even not a lot of previous sexual experiences doesn't necessarily affect one's ability to have healthy, committed, long-term relationships in their future. Some people assume that it does in a negative way. So it's like a proportionate relationship. The more sexual experiences you've had in your past, the more partners you've had, the less likely you will be a good long-term partner, and the less likely you are able to commit, or the less likely you can have a healthy long-term relationship. So to dispel that myth, this is what I would say. So we live in a puritanical society, at least one that is based on very old, traditional religious beliefs, right? There's sort of this expectation and this belief around the fact that having more partners is dirty or wrong in some way. That sexual purity comes from having few partners and not a lot of experience, or none at all. Some might argue, depending on the religion and the beliefs. And I'm not going to dive into why that belief is there, but I think in our modern society, we should collectively take a look at it and see if it still applies, if it's healthy, if it even makes any sense, if it has any bearing on people's ability to create these foundational, committed relationships as part of society as a whole. So it seems that the standard or this belief that the more partners you've had, that the less good of a partner you can be in the future to others is unevenly applied between the genders, as you might expect. I feel like women tend to get more judgment about their past than men. And people have written into my podcast about this a few times, for sure, asking like, how do I deal with the fact that my partner has had many partners before me? How can I see them in a good light? You know, I really like them. We have a good connection, but I can't, shake this feeling. And it's a feeling of judgment, right? So it is assuming that having a libido and having empowerment around your own sex life are somehow undesirable traits in a partner. And I find that odd. I feel like those traits don't have any bearing on someone's ability to have a great relationship. In fact, they can be really good traits. Like, I want to have a partner who's empowered, who knows themselves, who knows what they want, who isn't afraid to sexually express themselves or get their needs met. I think that's attractive. I think that's sexy, and I think that's healthy. There is one exception where I would say a lot of partners in your past could negatively affect your ability to have a healthy relationship in the future. And that's typically if you had a lot of partners in the past for one of these three general reasons. One, you were immature. And so, having that desire to just kind of go out and have fun, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with having fun, right? But it's sort of like you aren't settled down yet. You haven't focused your life. You haven't focused in on what you want. And sometimes sleeping with a lot of people is how to figure out what you want. So again, not necessarily negative. The second reason might be that you are bad at commitment. So if you are dating a lot of people and you back out of those relationships really quickly, once they get heavy, once they get difficult, once it starts getting a little serious, then you may have this fear of commitment and a desire to bounce around in very short-term relationships or non-committal casual relationships. Again, not inherently bad, but could have a bearing negatively on your ability to have future committed relationships. And thirdly, there's like if you were having a lot of sexual partners because of an insecurity, if you were looking for external validation from other people, like getting yourself all sexy, going out and dating, flirting, and that was your source of self-esteem, then that's not super healthy and not really a good trait to carry into a relationship in the future. But all those three things that I just listed are changeable. They're things that people can grow and change about. If you're immature, you can become more mature with a little self-work, a little life experience, a little guidance or mentorship perhaps. If you are bad at commitment and you have a fear around it, you can work on that too and become good at commitment and find it healthy and not threatening. And if you are dating around a lot and getting external validation because of some internal insecurity, you can work on that insecurity and become more secure and more self-validating, and have a healthier self-esteem. So it's again, not inherently a cause of a future bad time or inability to commit. These are just factors at play that are totally changeable. People grow. People change their mind about what they want later in life. And that's okay, regardless of what stage you're at. I also want to point out that assuming that someone's sexual experience in the past has any bearing on who they are or how good of a partner they could be in the future ties worth with experience. It ties how good of a person, how worthy, how desirable of a person you are with the things you've done in your past. And I would say that's a fallacy, to be totally honest, because it's weird that we apply that assumption only to sexual experiences, but we don't tie that to other experiences. It's not evenly applied across the board. You could say this about crimes, sure, but crimes are like where you hurt other people. Having sex with a few different people in your past is not necessarily hurting other people. I've lost my necklace. And so would you tie the same fallacy to other activities? Like, I have swung on a lot of swings. I like swing sets. And would it make sense for someone to judge me and say like, you wouldn't be a good partner in the future because you've been on a lot of different swing sets? Like, how does that relate, right? Or you've gone on a lot of dates. Let's say I go on dates and I don't even touch the other person. And they judge me for like, well, you've gone on a lot of dates. I don't think you could commit to me. I find that strange too, right? If we're going into a better metaphor in the relationship space, because you could argue that going on a lot of dates is a way that I figure out what I want and what I'm looking for and how to filter through people who are not a good match for me. So how does that have bearing on my ability to be a good partner to someone else, right? So I find that odd that we apply that logic to only sexual experiences. Would you apply that same logic to how many people you've been in love with? If you've only been in love with one person versus 20 people, does that have bearing on your ability to love someone in the future? No, right? Because you are only loving the person right in front of you, the person you're dating, the person you're with, and you are in the here and now. That's all that's relevant. The past doesn't even exist anymore. And yes, the past in general has a bearing on the present and the future, but you're only dealing with this one person in the present. You're not dating those people in the past anymore. They're not relevant. They're not a part of your life in front of you as a romantic option. So if you are able to focus on and dive in with the person that you're choosing to date in the present, isn't that all that matters? Right? I also wanted to mention that this is a form of sex shaming, and part of my general ethos, one of my values, is to generally reduce the shame around sexual activities, sexual interest, sexual experience, sexual expression. And this is one way that we can do that together if we collectively stop judging people for what they've done in the past. I have fallen victim to this myself. This is something that has been ingrained in me through the culture and society at large that I was raised in, and probably you too, that, oh, if you're dating someone and they had a lot of partners in the past, like, you should worry, or you should be concerned, or you should question your own lovability or the stability of that relationship or your worthiness to them, because it's like, oh, so you've had 100 partners. What am I, 101, right? Like, I get it. That is an insecurity that comes up for a lot of people. And I think it's rooted in the desire to feel special, the desire to feel important or wanted or chosen by your present partner. And that's totally valid. But let's not extrapolate about their past, because the clues as to whether or not you are important and valued and committed to from your partner can all be found in the present, not in their past necessarily. If they are loyal and open and honest and a good listener and hold space for you and show up even when things are going poorly for you. Let's say you're having a really stressful day and they don't bail. Like, if they're able to handle conflict, these are all really good traits that indicate that you are important, they're committed to you, they're in the here and now. And you should lean on that evidence more than your fears based on their past and your role in context of that past, right? Something to keep in mind, of course. I'm not saying like, oh, be blind to anything they've ever done, but I'm saying how relevant is that in the present? And you can watch it bear out. Like, watch your relationship with them unfold organically and watch for the proof in the pudding that they value you, that you're special, that they're committed. People can totally do it. So I think there's no bearing in general on someone's ability to have these healthy, deep, fulfilling, connected, and committed relationships into their future. In fact, I would even argue that having a lot of sexual partners or experience in the past can be a really good thing, right? Like, don't we want a partner who is who knows what they're doing in bed, who is skilled and is able to give pleasure really well, who is able to know what they want and be able to ask for it, who has considered a lot of different options and knows which one is right for them, personality-wise, sexuality-wise, things like that, who has an open mind to trying new interests because they've heard of those interests or perhaps been introduced to them by other partners. People in our past enrich who we are. They add to our lives. Even if it was a negative experience, you were able to learn. You learned what you didn't want. Maybe you became stronger because of a partner who treated you like shit. Things like that. And so in general, our past experiences can make us even a better person, and we can show up more fully and more self-aware and more present for future relationships. Also, experience does not necessarily correlate to skills in bed. Let's remember that you could have a partner who's had 100 partners, and if they're just doing the same thing every time and it didn't work for all those people, they're going to still do that crappy thing with you. It doesn't mean that they're self-aware enough to recognize what is good, what is pleasurable, what people want in bed, or they may not have the ability to communicate. They're like, this is the one thing I do in bed, and if you don't like it, too bad. So there's an inflexibility, a lack of open-mindedness to acclimating to their partner's specific needs and preferences. On the converse of that argument, there are people who are total virgins, no experience whatsoever, and are really good learners. Sometimes they learn really quickly and are able to attune themselves to their partner, what they want, and figure it out pretty easily and quickly and become really great in bed really quickly and have had only one partner their whole lives. It totally happens. So let's not make these broad assumptions about whether or not it's good or healthy to have had partners in your past, or that more partners in your past makes you damaged goods. I think that belief is damaging, not the activities of someone's past.